Now, let's look at KNN method using the caret library. So caret library allows you to set up different parameters and go through, instead of having to go through the for loop, you can set up, what are the different k values you want to consider. All of that can be set up in control and what is called tuning grid. Tuning grid is where you can specify, I want to consider k equal to 5 through 45 or something like that. Instead of having to do a for loop, you can let caret do all the heavy lifting for us. So now we need to set up two things, okay, and that would be the train control is one, okay. So we do train control, okay. Now we need to save this train control, so let's say KNN CRTL, okay. Now if you don't, the default values for train control is cross validation with 5 as the number of folds. So what is cross validation? You remember that, right? So you get the data, and if the number of folds is say 6, then you divide this into 6 parts. You set aside one part and then as the test data or validate data, and you take the rest of them as trained data and run the model. And then you take the second of the 6, put that aside, and take the remaining and run your train. Then the third time you take the third 1/6, put that aside, and keep doing like that all the way through. So that is cross validation. So we need to specify method. So method cross validation is the default. Okay. So you say CV, or it can be boot will be bootstrap method. Okay, bootstrap method will be like sampling with replacement. You sample, put it back, sample, put it back, and so on. And if you don't want cross validation or bootstrap sampling, then you can't leave it. You can leave it out, because if you leave it out, the default is CV, cross validation. So you have to set up train control and say method equal to none. Okay, and then number. So you say number equal to. So this is your number of folds. Say 5. Let's say 5. Okay, and okay, we will do one more thing. So k list. So this is your values for k. What are the different values of k we want to consider? And this is what is called tuning grid. And this has to be a data frame. Okay, so data frame k equal to, then you say C 1 to 20. Okay, so this is going to give us the two parameters that we want to use in our, when we do the training and predict. Okay, so now let's call it knn.cv. Okay, so the train is the command, train is the method that we use, and then here we have to specify what y is and what x is. So y is train, okay, dot df cat med v. Okay. Now cat med v is not transformed at all, so train dot df cat med v is exactly the same as train dot norm cat med v. So remember, we did not do pre-processing for the target. So that's your target. Okay. Now, what is the X predictors? Okay. Now here we can use train.norm, okay, which is already normalized. We did that previously. But Caret allows you to do the pre-processing as part of the train. You don't have to do it separately. Okay. If you're going to be using the normalized data elsewhere, then it is a good idea to set it up separately. So separately, you saved it, it's there, and you can use it for many models. But if you're running only this, and you don't really need the transformed data, then you can do it in this fashion. Okay, so you don't have to do it both ways. Okay. Now I'm going to select the non-normalized data, and then we can say pre-process equal to, okay, it's the same pre-process that we did outside. Okay, that's the same pre-process, but we are now incorporating that into the code itself. So pre-process is center and scale. Okay. Remember, you don't, if we use train.norm here, then we don't need this. Okay. And then we say tr control equal to KNN-CTRL. So that's going to tell the method that we want cross-validation number of folds equal to 5. And then we say tune grid equal to klist. Okay. And then finally we say, what do you want to do with all this? Okay. We say, I want to use KNN. Now you'll see that this overall approach is used not just in KNN, but decision tree, neural networks, logistic regression, and so on and on and on. So the process of setting up control on the tuning grid is common for many methods. Okay. Then you'll use the train method, set up all the things that you want to do, and then you specify what method needs to be used. And sometimes the tuning grid is going to be specific to the method, because in decision tree, your tuning grid is not going to be the same as k equal to 1 to 20. It's going to be something else. In neural networks, it will be something else. So the tuning grid will be unique to each method. How you sample will be common. Okay, you want bootstrap or CV or none, that it will be common for all methods. But tuning grid will be specific. You don't use the same syntax of tuning grid in different methods. For KNN, you will have to set up tuning grid one way. In logistic regression, you have to set up the tuning grid in a slightly different way, and so on. Okay, so now let's run this. Okay, I didn't. I have to run that first, and then run this, and I still have. Oh, CRTL. I made a typo here. You're trying to do regression, only has 2 possible values, or you try. Okay, so I have to do factor somewhere. Okay. Yeah. Here, so what this error is telling me is that since the train.df.cat.medv, it has only two possible values, but it is not coded as a factor. Because it is not coded as a factor, this procedure is trying to fit a prediction model, not a classification model. Okay. So what we need to do is to say that that's a factor. Okay. How do you do that? You have to do as factor okay. So now it's run the model. So knn.cv. So if you look at let's look at the best tune. Okay, so here best tune gives you k equal to 2. Yeah. So even for the same data, okay, when you use a different model or a different method with cross validation, because it gives you different